Most people spend their lives trying to become someone else. They chase a future version of themselves that seems wiser, stronger, more confident, and more complete. They believe that one day, through enough effort and enough transformation, they will finally become the person they were always meant to be. But what if that assumption is wrong? What if growth is not about becoming someone new? What if it is not about adding more layers, more achievements, more identities, and more roles? What if the deepest transformation is actually a process of remembering something that has always existed beneath the conditioning, expectations, and noise of the world? Before anyone told you who to be, you existed in a different relationship with yourself. Before labels, before comparison, before approval became important, there was a natural expression of who you were. A part of you existed before the world began defining what was acceptable, desirable, successful, or worthy. As children, we learn quickly that belonging often requires adaptation. We observe what receives praise and what receives rejection. We learn which parts of ourselves are welcomed and which parts create discomfort. Slowly, without realizing it, we begin shaping our identity around survival. The process is subtle. It does not happen overnight. It happens through thousands of small experiences: a comment, an expectation, a disappointment, a reward. Each moment leaves an impression. Over time, those impressions accumulate until they begin forming the structure of the personality we present to the world. Carl Jung believed that much of what we call identity is only a fraction of the total self. Beneath the personality exists a deeper dimension that remains largely hidden. This deeper self does not disappear simply because it is ignored. It continues existing beneath awareness, waiting to be recognized. Many people spend years searching for purpose, yet the search itself may be based on a misunderstanding. Purpose is often treated as something that must be discovered somewhere outside the self. Yet perhaps purpose is not something to find. Perhaps it is something to remember. The modern world constantly encourages reinvention. Become better. Become stronger. Become more successful. Become more attractive. Become more productive. While growth is valuable, endless self-improvement can sometimes create the illusion that who you are right now is not enough. This belief creates a quiet separation between the present self and the imagined future self. People begin living as if fulfillment exists somewhere ahead of them. They postpone their sense of wholeness until they reach another milestone, another achievement, or another version of themselves. Yet the qualities people admire most are often not acquired. They are revealed. Confidence is revealed. Authenticity is revealed. Creativity is revealed. Inner power is revealed. These qualities frequently emerge when the layers covering them begin to dissolve rather than when something new is added. The version of you that feels most authentic is often the version that existed before fear became the primary decision maker, before rejection influenced your choices, before comparison shaped your self-image, before expectations convinced you that your value depended on becoming someone different from who you already were. Many people assume that confidence is built through achievement. Yet there are individuals who accomplish extraordinary things and still feel disconnected from themselves. Achievement can change circumstances, but it cannot replace self-recognition. The deepest form of confidence emerges when a person remembers who they are beneath external validation. The subconscious mind stores far more than memories. It stores emotional associations, beliefs, perceptions, and experiences that influence how reality is interpreted. Over time, these stored patterns create an internal lens through which life is viewed. That lens can either reveal your authentic nature or hide it. One of the greatest challenges in life is distinguishing between who you truly are and who you learned to become. The difference is not always obvious. Conditioning can become so familiar that it feels natural. A belief repeated for years can eventually feel like an undeniable truth. This is why self-awareness is so important. Awareness creates separation between the observer and the pattern. The moment you begin observing your beliefs instead of automatically identifying with them, you create space for something new to emerge. In that space, deeper truths become visible. The journey inward is rarely comfortable. It requires questioning assumptions that may have shaped your identity for years. It requires examining beliefs that once felt unquestionable. It requires the courage to discover that some parts of your identity were inherited rather than consciously chosen. Every human being carries both potential and conditioning. Potential represents what is naturally present. Conditioning represents what has been learned. Much of personal growth involves recognizing the difference between the two. The more clearly you see the conditioning, the easier it becomes to reconnect with your authentic nature. The world often rewards performance. It rewards appearance, status, achievement, and approval. Yet the soul responds differently. It responds to authenticity. A person can gain recognition from others, while simultaneously feeling disconnected from themselves. External success cannot replace internal alignment. There comes a moment in many people's lives when the roles they have been playing begin to feel too small. The identities that once provided security begin to feel restrictive. The life that once made sense no longer feels aligned. What appears to be a crisis is often the beginning of awakening. Awakening does not necessarily mean becoming someone new. More often, it means remembering what was forgotten. It means recognizing the difference between the self that was constructed for survival and the self that exists beneath the construction. It means returning to something essential that never truly disappeared. The process of remembering often begins with a question. Not a question about what you should become, but a question about what has been hidden. What beliefs have you accepted without examination? What roles have you been performing for approval? What parts of yourself have remained silent simply because they were never encouraged to speak? Many people spend years trying to fix themselves. They approach personal growth as though something inside them is fundamentally broken. Yet what if the problem is not that you are broken? What if the problem is that you have become disconnected from parts of yourself that were never broken in the first place? The subconscious mind is remarkably loyal. It protects the identities that have helped you survive. Even when those identities create limitations, the subconscious may resist change because change introduces uncertainty. This is why growth often feels uncomfortable. The familiar self resists making space for the authentic self. Every belief you hold influences the way you perceive reality. If you believe you are unworthy, you will notice evidence that appears to confirm it. If you believe you are powerless, you will focus on limitations. The mind continuously searches for information that reinforces its existing assumptions. This is why transformation cannot rely solely on external change. A new environment, a new relationship, or a new opportunity may create temporary shifts, but lasting change occurs when the internal lens begins to change. The world often reflects the stories that the subconscious has been telling for years. Remembering who you are requires becoming aware of those stories. Some stories were inherited from family. Others came from culture, education, or social expectations. Some were formed through painful experiences that convinced you to see yourself in a certain way. Not every story deserves to remain. As awareness grows, something interesting begins to happen. You start recognizing that many of your limitations are not objective facts. They are interpretations. They are conclusions that were formed at specific moments in time. Once a conclusion is recognized as a conclusion rather than a truth, it can be questioned. Questioning old assumptions is not an act of rebellion. It is an act of self-discovery. It allows you to separate what is genuinely yours from what was imposed by others. The goal is not to reject every influence. The goal is to consciously choose which influences deserve a place within your identity. The authentic self rarely arrives with noise and certainty. More often, it emerges quietly. It appears through intuition, curiosity, creativity, and inner knowing. It reveals itself in moments when external expectations lose their power and inner truth becomes impossible to ignore. Many people imagine awakening as a dramatic event. In reality, it is often a gradual process. Small realizations accumulate over time. A belief is questioned. A pattern is recognized. A fear loses its grip. Piece by piece, the layers begin to fall away, revealing something that was always present beneath them. Perhaps the version of yourself you have been searching for was never lost. Perhaps it was simply buried beneath years of expectations, conditioning, and adaptation. Beneath every role you have played and every identity you have carried, there remains a deeper part of you that has never forgotten who it is. The journey is not about creating a new self from nothing. It is about removing what no longer belongs. It is about releasing beliefs that were never truly yours. It is about recognizing patterns that once protected you but now prevent you from fully expressing who you are becoming. As these layers begin to dissolve, something remarkable happens. Life stops feeling like a performance. Decisions become clearer. Relationships become more authentic. The need for constant validation begins to weaken. Instead of chasing approval, you begin listening to something far more reliable, your own inner truth. The world will always offer countless opinions about who you should be. It will suggest identities, labels, expectations, and definitions. But no external voice can tell you who you truly are. That discovery can only emerge from within. It can only emerge through awareness, reflection, and self-recognition. Many people spend their entire lives trying to become worthy, yet worthiness is not something that can be earned through endless achievement. It is something that must be remembered. The moment you stop measuring your value through external standards, you begin reconnecting with a deeper sense of self. This remembrance changes the way you move through life. Fear loses some of its power. Comparison becomes less important. The pressure to constantly prove yourself begins to fade. What once felt necessary starts feeling irrelevant because your identity is no longer dependent on external confirmation. You begin realizing that your greatest strength was never something you needed to acquire. It was something you needed to uncover. Beneath the conditioning, beneath the doubts, and beneath the stories you inherited, there has always been a deeper intelligence guiding your path. The more you reconnect with that deeper intelligence, the less you need the world to tell you who you are. Clarity replaces confusion. Alignment replaces struggle. What once felt fragmented begins to feel whole, not because you became someone different, but because you stopped abandoning yourself. Perhaps the most important realization is this. The person you are becoming is not a future version waiting somewhere ahead of you. She is not waiting at the end of a goal, a milestone, or an achievement. She has been present all along, patiently waiting to be remembered. You do not become her, you remember her. You remember the wisdom beneath the conditioning. You remember the truth beneath the fear. You remember the self that existed before the world told you who to be. And in that remembrance, you discover that everything you were searching for was already within you.